Well, let's talk to someone from the opposition. Let's see their point of view. It's Australian cricket expert Paul Dennett. Morning, Paul.
Hi, guys. How you going?
Not too bad. So, did you get burnt yesterday? Was it a bad day for the Aussies, do you think?
Well, I got burnt physically myself, sitting there watching it in the sun, which was glorious.
I was going to say, was it hot there? I saw a couple of players, the Aussies, with sunscreen over their faces, and I thought, oh, you're only in Birmingham, mate. It can't be that hot, but was it?
It was very hot. I got fooled by the temperature because it's only 22 or 23 degrees. But when the sun comes out, it felt like I was at the MCG on a blazing sunny day. I was putting the sunscreen on all day.
Lovely. Well, it's nice to hear that an Aussie come over and say the weather's good in the UK, because trust me, it's very rare. Are you going to be okay? Because I've got to say, the Ashes, it always grips the nation, because that rivalry between Australia and England is fierce, it's brilliant, and it's real. I mean, how are you feeling after yesterday?
I think that we had a disappointing day, but we've at least kept ourselves in the fight, in the sense that Peter Siddle was brought in to do a job, and I think he did an excellent job of keeping things very tight. There have been times in the past where we'd leak runs and maybe England would have got a further 50 or 60. So if Australia can take some early wickets this morning, then it's game on. But my nightmare scenario would be if they get through to lunch relatively unscathed and players like Bairstow and Ali can come out and play with freedom. Could be a pretty long afternoon, especially if our second innings begins in front of the Holly stands, who are well lubricated.
I'm actually looking forward to it. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I thought Steve Smith's innings was magnificent. Genuine world class, while everything else was falling around him, especially with the atmosphere that he'd come into. He is one of the world's great players, I have to say that. He's not easy on the eye, but what a wonderful player. Everyone else let him down. Today is going to be about your bowling attack. And are they up for it? What are the conditions going to be like? Will they play a part? And the track, what's the track going to be like? What are your expectations there?
Well, I was surprised by how slow it was yesterday. It seemed to have slowed down, and Nathan Lyon was getting some spin, but it was slow spin, and some of the edges weren't really carrying through. This new ball that Australia now have will be quite key. I think that if there's going to be some life, it will be in those first few overs. And then what I'm hoping is that, from an Australian partisan perspective, is that if Australia can keep the lead to 80 or 100, then as we move into day 4, maybe the pitch will start to break up a little bit under this hot sun, and maybe a little bit more turn will come out.
I was looking at Burns yesterday, and I was quite interested with some of the stats. I didn't realise, I was watching, and he seemed to be on that magical 90, between a 90 and 100. It was 54 minutes it took him to get those 10 runs, and it just thinks, like, I don't know, as a batsman, whether that's a psychological thing, and you're really nervous, you're so close to 100, you've got to get it. But is a danger for you now that he comes in today and he's kind of like got the pressure off him, if you want? He's had a fantastic 125 unbeaten. Do you think he'll be feeling less pressure going out today, or do you think he'll be thinking, oh, I've got to keep this going? How will the psychology work?
It's a really interesting question, because I heard him interviewed after play, and he just comes across as extraordinarily calm. And they pointed out that he'd been in the 90s for so long, and he basically said, I was just waiting for the right ball to hit. And I think the Australians were quite cunning. They were bowling lots of balls outside off stump and sort of making him make the running. So he sounded one of the most unflappable characters I've ever encountered. And in some senses, I'd love it if he played with more freedom and maybe got out. What I don't want him to do is come out and play exactly the same way and really bog Australia down and extend the lead. And
I've got to ask, your bowlers have to step up today. I think it's important for them. If you look at England, for example, Broad stood out 5-4, with supported by Wokes. Who's going to be the main man you'd be looking at today for the Aussies to really make the breakthrough?
I think all of them, but if I had to pick one, it would be James Pattinson. I'm a big fan of his, and he's been out of the game for ages. He's had back surgery. It looked like he wasn't going to be able to play cricket ever again. It's a real exciting story to see him back and getting wickets, and he's got that extra yard of pace and that extra nastiness. And so if I had to pick one, it would be him, but maybe in the second innings, Nathan Lyon.
He's a unit of a man as well, isn't he? He looks terrifying. He looks a big guy.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and I've said this before, but there's the sort of rumour that he's not completely sane in the nicest possible way, that the best fast bowlers just have a little bit of that craziness to him, and when you're batting against him, that makes it even more a terrifying prospect.
And is it as important to win the first test? Because it's a big series, it's a massive series, it's a long enough series, so losing the first test, does that really have to matter if the team perform well?
It's a massive loss, obviously, to go down 1-0 in a best-of-5 series. But I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's the performance that matters. That if Australia end up losing this, but don't get blown away, then they can go to Lord's feeling reasonably okay. If England were to bat all day today and plaster Australia everywhere, and another day in the field, and sort of injuries could start to creep in, then that might be a different situation.
Well, Paul, two things. Hope it goes well today for you, and secondly, use your sunscreen. Don't get burnt, my friend. It's ferocious. It's a ferocious in Birmingham. Thank you very much for joining us. That was Paul Dennett, Australian cricket journalist, an all-round good guy. Right, talking of good guys, Brendan Rodgers.